there are those who become artisans of drift, pilots of circular rivers, learning at last how to decorate the whirlpool instead of departing it. They name this endurance. They name this maturity. They polish the iron bands around the ribs and call the weight life. Meanwhile, beneath the floorboards of the spirit, unopened rooms swell with water. Every swallowed grief becomes subterranean weather. Every unspoken terror, a black pearl forming around a grain of refusal. Nothing buried remains motionless. The unexamined multiplies in darkness, feeding upon postponement. And so the body learns strange dialects, fatigue that appears without warning, laughter too sharp at the edges, affections offered mechanically, eyes that glaze over whenever truth enters the room holding a lantern. For pain does not disappear when hidden, it becomes architecture. We carry reservoirs within us, vast drowned cathedrals, where old humiliations drift like pale fish through flooded aisles. And we kneel before these waters unknowingly, calling the pressure personality. Yet, stranger still, how often the jailer is imaginary. A sentence overheard in childhood becomes scripture. A frightened voice says, "That is impossible," and suddenly entire continents within the soul are declared unreachable. Do not sing too loudly. Do not imagine too greatly. Do not attempt what others abandoned. Do not become unfamiliar. Brick by invisible brick, the mind erects a fortress around inherited fear, then forgets it built the walls at all. And when a wandering light slips through the cracks, some impossible person, some untamed spirit, some radiant fool carrying futures in their pockets, panic arrives disguised as wisdom. Quickly mortar the breach. Explain away the miracle. Name it unrealistic. Call it madness. Anything to preserve the familiar geometry of confinement. But there never was a wall. Only agreement. Only repetition. Only many frightened hands holding the same painted curtain and calling it stone. Meanwhile, outside the invented boundaries, the strange ones continue walking, those luminous aberrations mocked by the keepers of smaller rooms. How often envy is merely admiration that has forgotten how to bow? For sometimes the people we resent most are carrying the precise key that would loosen the lock around our own throat. And free will, terrible, sacred thing, permits us even the freedom to remain asleep beside an open gate. Still, something ancient within us grows weary of circular waters. The soul was not fashioned to remain forever in containment. There comes an hour when the hidden reservoir ruptures, when all suppressed rivers demand movement, when the old coping mechanisms collapse like paper lanterns in rain. And though it feels at first like destruction, it is often the first honest tide. because the cracking of false walls is not death, it is acoustics. At last, the greater world can reach us. Then imagination returns from exile. Then emotion ceases to be a burden and becomes a compass. Then intention sharpens into living flame. And suddenly, what once seemed impossible stands quietly before us, not as fantasy, but as unopened territory. The frightened architecture falls away. The drowned cathedral empties itself into the sea. The stagnant waters begin moving toward stars, and the soul, no longer circling itself, widens, wider than inherited fear, wider than ridicule, wider than the old rehearsed impossibilities, until at last one discovers that expansion was never something granted by the world, only something